Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leverage Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Mike Collier, and this is your go-to spot for game-changing conversations that help real estate professionals and business owners scale with leverage, mindset, mastery. Now, that's going to happen today because I want you to buckle up. We've got a powerhouse guest who's been rewriting the real estate scaling playbook. Meet Jessica Nieto, team leader and broker associate at eXp Realty's Netto Connect team. With a lean, mean team of 16 agents based out of LA, California, she and her crew closed about $140 million in volume across 200 transactions just last year. This episode is brought to you by smarthireva.com, your secret weapon for getting smart, skilled virtual assistants on your team without breaking a sweat. Imagine this. Somebody handling all your admin, scheduling, follow-ups, so you can focus on your zone of genius. It's like having a productivity fairy godmother. So head over to smarthireva.com to get your tailored match for your business and tell them I sent you for an extra sprinkle of magic. All right, let's dive in with the one and only Jessica Nieto and explore how she's leveraging masterminds, relationships, podcasting, and mindset to create real estate momentum that truly scales. Jessica, welcome to the show.
What's up, Mike? I feel like every time we're in front of every time we're in front of an audience, we have to tell people like our meet story. That's like the first thing that comes to mind because ever since we met, we were like, hey, let's go over here and like write out our ideas real quick before we go on stage. So it's been so fun creating with you over the last few years.
So much fun. I always enjoy sharing the stages with you and sharing spaces with you. We've done a lot of cool stuff. And I always, we're at like big events and I'm like, oh, I'm speaking on stage. You're like, yeah, I'm speaking on stage too. We're like, what's up? And so Jessica's just one of those people. Once you meet her, you never forget her. And to know her is to love her. So I'm really glad that you said yes to being on the Leverage Lounge podcast. And I'm ready to have some fun with you. You good with it?
I'm ready, Mike. Yeah, I'm so glad you got this podcast together. It's an awesome platform for you to be bringing all your relationships and peeps on here to share. So multiplying your impact as usual.
Yes, that is it. Now, speaking of multiplying and momentum, your Momentum Mondays help agents refresh and act. Why is community accountability such a powerful leverage tool?
So accountability within community, I think that's probably because there's so much energy that happens, right? And so in order to get some momentum, it's like you need like blunt force sometimes. And I think sometimes like in this virtual world that we're in with so many people feeling a little bit lonely, I'm on an island, the quickest, fastest way to get into motion is to get around some positive energy and just get that like jolt, like some type of ignition so that you can get into motion. And then once you're into motion, you're making mistakes and you're on your way. So through community, what I love, and I mean, where I've really grown as an entrepreneur is sort of going from that hustle mentality into leverage mode was through getting into rooms with other people, right? And being in community with others. That's how I first learned about entrepreneurship. When I first heard about real estate agents, I never wanted to be one because I was working in an office with a lot of real estate professionals and they were all waiting for their check and most of them were broke. And I thought, that doesn't seem like something that I want to do. I never considered being a real estate agent. Being at eXp takes you outside of that box. And so what was so fascinating to me is if you get around the right people and you get into those rooms, you hear about these things that you haven't been exposed to. And for me, that was entrepreneurship before eXp, but it's just been like a multiplier, right? And so community should be like a mirror to you. So that's what we try to create in our communities. And what you create, Mike, is just getting people together and saying like, don't look at my success like, oh, I could never get there. Be careful how you define other people's success. Because when I see success, I see you've got some gems. And if I can create conversation with you or find a way to add value to you, find a way to build a relationship with you or just add value, somehow there's going to be some reciprocity at some point. And some people might think, well, that's selfish. But the truth of it is, that's the game. And so get in the game, add value to people without expecting anything in return. But along the way of you doing that, there's reciprocity. And then all of a sudden it's like you're grabbing gems, you're around the right people, and you're seeing their success as an opportunity to grow that direction versus, trying to just copycat. It's not about that. So.
It's like the universal law that goes back to the biblical principle of it's better to give than to receive, right? And so if you step into these places and you're like, I just want to give, I just want to be a small part in your big success. And if you create that vibe and that's what you attract, then I always say your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So if your vibe attracts your tribe, you're getting the right people around you and you're coming there not to just, what can I get from these people? But actually, I want to add value in my own way. And guess what? Your value might be the story that you tell, that is the chapters of your life that you've been through, that you've been able to navigate through, that might help unlock somebody else who's actually going through it themselves.
I've spoken to people before where I thought, hey, like I was talking to Ed Kaminsky a couple weeks back. And I was telling Ed he's like, tell me your story. So I'm telling my story. And he's like, that's a lot of those things aligned with what I went through. And the reason why we were having the conversation is because I was asking Ed a mentorship question and pay people too. Like I do that all the time. I'll say, hey, if you can't get into conversation with people or you can't get people's time and you don't have a relationship with them, just say, hey, could I pay you to sit with me for 30 minutes? I've got a couple questions that I feel like you are perfectly suited to give me the clues to.
Ooh. Have you ever had anybody take you up on that offer and be like, yeah, you can pay me for 30 minutes?
100%.
Wow. So
why not? So for me, growing up, we didn't have much money. We don't have, parents that went to Harvard or people that know somebody. So for me, communication, adding value, building community, and true connection has just been something that I found was the way to pave the path, right? And so if you're afraid to be in conversation with someone, I always say that conversation that you're avoiding is leverage that you're losing to get farther faster to where you want to go and who you want to become.
Now, you mentioned that you were sharing some of your story with Ed Kaminsky. Let's go back. Take us back to another place in time where Jess got started. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you rose to prominence, if you will say.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say prominence, right? Like, oh my goodness, Mike, it's been crazy. Like so many agents are out, struggling. So that's why I love that you have this podcast out. There's so many opportunities. And I think sometimes we just are only thinking about the opportunities that we think we're capable of achieving. Like we could probably get there if we work that hard or if we follow this path or we spend this much time doing something. But I truly believe that, from my past, I learned from my dad growing up that the harder you work, the more you'll achieve. And so all my life, that was my philosophy and I could run circles around anyone. And it wasn't until later into my real estate career when I realized that doing volume, I was never the next door neighborhood realtor, working with investors, selling hundreds and hundreds and then thousands of homes, you see a lot. And the thing that's kept me humble over time is number one, like I've worked hard for everything that I have, but that's how I view other people, wealthy people, people of every walk of life, that I value what they bring to the table. So that's number one, is to stay humble. And I think that gets you farther faster because you're paying attention in a different way. Number two is you can only get so far by working really hard. And that's where you come into what I call is like the pillars for me are time, energy, knowledge, technology, and relationships. And I actually had written that down on a wall in my office earlier on in my career. And I just said, like, how can I look at every one of these pillars in real estate and figure out like what part of it am I good at? And then figure out what part of it can I pay someone else to do? And then what part of it can I automate? Fast forward, like you could pretty much automate everything, but there's certain things that you can't, and that's people. And so what I love about technology and what we've been talking a lot about in our community is fast forward now, you can literally is taking cross-pollinating people that are really great with tech and people that are really great about building community, great communicators, creators, artists, whatever type of entrepreneur, and cross-pollinating them together. So rather than being afraid of where technology is taking us, instead feel really empowered And we can even get more in alignment with what we're focusing on than ever before.
I love that.
And
I love that.
yeah. And so when people see me, they're like, oh, Jessica sells a bunch of real estate. People that know me at EXP and other circles, they don't even know I sell a lot of real estate. They're like, oh, you're the one, you're always out, you're always showing up, you're always here. But the real Jessica Nieto, like the real person that I am as me, is actually just waking up as early as I can, not to hustle anymore, but to create, to actually be able to spend 2 hours creating something that's like from who I am and what I want to create, what I want to see in the world. That's what's great about these podcasts, Mike, is you could get to know all these people, right?
Yeah, I agree. We talk about working on your business and not always just working in your business. I think a lot of agents especially get lost. Business owners, we get lost in the sauce at some point. We start just focusing on doing the things, and whether we're managing a team or you have employees, whatever it is, you're just constantly going. And it's very easy to lose track of sometimes even the vision, the longer term vision. It's like, wait, stepping back for a second and working on the business. And I read a stat that 97% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Right? That's huge. That's a huge
90%?
number. 97% of small businesses.
I'd love to know the statistic of how many of the 97% then started something new and how many of them gave up.
Think about it. There's a lot of agents. Let's talk about real estate agents. There's a lot of agents. Most real estate agents fail within their first 2 years, right? That number is like 87% of agents fail within their first 2 years. It's something like 90% of those agents that make it fail within their next 5 years, right? Because of that real estate roller coaster. They never build the systems. They never begin scaling and having some kind of way of having a reliable source of income out of the business. And so you end up getting these part-time agents many times. Yeah. And then if they do fail out of the business, then they end up going back into the 9 to 5 that they probably came out of to go into real estate.
I think that's exactly where they get it from though, right? So for me, same thing. Like you either have an entrepreneurial spirit. I think everyone does, but everyone else has a different relation with the fear that they have about giving up the control or the consistent paycheck, if you just want to put it straight, right? And so you have people coming in and they're like, I'm free. And they're like, there's no gravity.
I'm my own boss.
And they're like, tell me what to do. Like, what do I do? And that's a great thing about, getting into the right environment. So being at EXP, you're in the right environment, but now it's up to you to actually put it into motion and put it into action, which is taking the action and all of that, but taking the right actions. And then it's like, don't chase all the squirrels, right? Don't chase every freaking little thing. Like every day, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go door knock, and try a little bit, but have a plan, right? Like I'm going to try this and not give up. One of the things that keeps us honest on our team and keeps us growing and getting better is that you have to challenge your own belief that you have about something. We talk about that a lot. One, you have to cultivate a belief, but you also have to challenge your belief in how great you are at something. You're like, well, I'm getting, this many real estate listing appointments, and I'm meeting this many buyers and getting this many buyers pre-approved and doing this many buyer consultations or whatever it is now. Right now it's buyer consultations before we do anything, which is great. I mean, it creates a perfect environment at an open house to create new business, where you have some agents that are like, well, nobody came to the open house, or it's, it was slow, or people don't want to talk to me. What I hear is, exactly what's wrong. And within the EXP platform, you could go find the right person to help you fix that component. Go get really good at that part. And maybe at the same time, put it on your calendar, get a little bit better at something else, And then the next thing is like some agents I see, they get really, really good at something, and then they don't want to let go of that job. They don't want to let go of the control now of the result that they're getting based on their performance. When I talk to them about giving up some of that, they think of it like delegating. And delegating is just handing off a task. That's different than leverage, right? Correct. Leverage is like designing momentum so that something doesn't depend on you.
Yes.
So even whether it's a person or a company or whatever it is, it's about staying present in the thing that you're good at, but in a way that it can multiply.
Man, you're good. Here's why I love that. Because that's the whole reason that I created the Leverage Lounge podcast. I believe that most of these small businesses that we talked about that have this high failure rate, most of them, there's two things that I think are lacking. One is exposure to how to build a bigger business, a better business, right?
Yep.
And then, yes, you have
They're
all these
not,
podcasts, you have books, you have all these things that you can watch, YouTube video, you got a ton of stuff that's out there. But we know that most people don't really invest their time into working on their business because they're too busy working in their business. So many times they're not listening to the podcast they should be listening to and such, right? And then you have those who listen to the podcast, they go to the conferences and they sit in the meetings and they take the notes, but they lack the second thing, which is execution.
yeah.
And so you can get people say knowledge is power. And I'm like, yeah, knowledge is power, but only applied knowledge is the power. You can delegate things that are in your business. Let's say you're working in your business and you're tearing your hair out and you're like, I need somebody else to do this for me, right? And so you can delegate those tasks out, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily using leverage because, like you mentioned, leverage is building a business that you can sometime at some point step away from. This is the long-term game. Speaking of building a business, you've actually built a borderless investment business across multiple states using our EXP tools. How does this platform unlock exponential scalability?
Yeah, so we had a brokerage before we came over to EXP, and I can tell you that the things that keep you up at night are the things that you're not necessarily really great at and not meant to do. Like, we came to EXP for money. like that's not why I
For
stayed
money?
at EXP. Yeah, money. Like just to like have more of my time back from doing all the things that you don't like. Obviously, we still have a lot of compliance we have to do as associate brokers, as agents, but just not being able to go into the broker's office. And this cracks me up. Like, I bet more top producers go in and ask the brokers question than people realize.
Yeah.
I don't know what that stat is. I go in and talk to the broker all the time because rather than sitting for 6 hours and trying to, figure like a little problem challenge out, even if I feel I know the answer, rather than going and talking to an attorney, I could go and talk to one of the brokers first, get their opinion on it, kind of run by what my strategy is, and then get some buy-in from them.
Yeah.
Or maybe a new idea. So that's one, is just having that partnership. I think that knowledge is like a huge power because it's if you use it, right? So that's one example. I would say two is the scalability of technology and offering tech and tools to agents to attract them to the company or to your team or to retain them on your team is huge. If you start even adding up, I don't even think you could go through the whole list, right, Mike? Like you get through like 5 tools and look at the cost of that and ask me if that's scalable. But 3 is just the things that we're exposed to in terms of the knowledge that we don't have to go out and learn everything. We could just kind of show up and it's packaged up. So you're condensing that time. But 4, I would say, is the number one for me, which is community. And like every time you have one of those conversations with someone that you would have to build like relationship with, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, it's Jessica Nieto with EXP to another EXP agent. And typically like immediately they're going to say, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I saw you're doing, 100 open houses a year, whatever. And I just wondered if you could share with me or if you could come on and share with my group, like what those things are or whatnot.
How does the EXP platform specifically unlock exponential scalability and how has it worked for you?
So I'll give a couple bullet points, but I'm going to go deep into a couple. One has been our brokerage ops team. They're just so knowledgeable and they're so brilliant, and they do a lot of the stuff that we just don't have to spend the time on as brokerage owners or, large teams at other brokerages. So that's been fantastic. But number 2, I would say is tools. Canva. I know it seems so simple, but for an agent to come over and have a $40 Canva and then for us to have all of our templates already set up in Canva and to help them create more content more often has been a game changer for us. Everybody wants a sexy look now. This branding is so important. And so Canva really aligns with a lot of the content that we're putting out. CRM of choice has been a game changer for us, being able to choose the CRM that you're working with and have that be in your toolbox. I tell every agent that comes on new to EXP, like, do not buy anything. So do not subscribe to anything until you figure out if you could just use an EXP tool instead that's provided to you. That kind of blows their minds. And we have something that's really helped us. I know scalability is also about profit, right? And so when you can keep the machine lean and mean, agents are happier. A lot of times the reason why agents need to make more money is because they're spending a certain amount of money. And so when you can help them reduce that friction of cost, it gives them a little bit of breathing room. I know that sounds like it's not a theory. Like, it literally is game changing for people when they look at it and they're like, well, yeah, I'm spending $600 to $800 a month on my real estate business costs. Like, why? Expenses are great, but at the same time, if you could spend less, then you don't, so.
And then there's the multiplying effect of that, right? Because you start talking to a team leader who's carrying the expense, or an independent broker who's carrying the expense of all of their agents, right? Now it's not just their business that they're having to, invest in. They're investing into the business of each and every one of these agents. So multiply that number, whatever it was personally, times 10 or 15 or 50. And if that expense goes away, it's a game changer.
Yeah. So these enterprise accounts that EXP has with these big companies now is so fantastic, because then we're able to offer all of this tech to people when they join your team or join the company with no additional costs, which is extremely awesome, which empowers you to put that into marketing or put that back into your client VIP program or whatnot. So, okay, scalability for us is, I know this sounds super simple, Mike, but I think for us, leverage is also being able to kind of operate in our own design. And what I mean by that is I never feel restricted by like how we run our business versus other real estate companies. So we can truly build out like every single thing that we're doing and bolt it onto whatever tool that EXP has. CRM of choice, for example, we don't all have to use one particular system. So we can really customize a lot of our workflows. So I work with a lot of investors as an example versus some agents work maybe, with a lot of traditional buyers or sellers, whatever your focus is. So for me, my workflows and my SOPs are not as similar to maybe another agent. And for that reason, building a team for me, I had built a limiting belief at one point that I shouldn't have a real estate team because I didn't know how to exactly duplicate what I was doing for another agent. It would just mean like similar clients. But what I've been able to do at EXP is come in and just be a sponge for the people that are doing the things that the other agents on my team want to specialize in, whether it's just bringing them in, helping them like bring the knowledge in, paying them or asking them. Most of them will just come and sit with us or train with us. Then developing the system based on their process to help my agent get their business going. That process for me is literally how I've helped other agents build a good business in real estate, whether they're on my team or a mentee.
You're so good. Yeah, no, that's perfect because you're so good with relationships, connection. I've seen your podcast. I've seen how you work with other agents. I've seen you working with your team. I've seen you lead groups and conversations in large rooms. How would you say connections and authenticity really create business leverage beyond just transactions?
Yeah. I think when we think about leverage, that a lot of people tie it just to people and tools. But I think first it's about belief and identity, like not just who you are, but who you want to become. I spent a lot of time just thinking that just making more money and doing less work was where I was going to become happier.
I think a lot of people think that.
Yeah, seems so.
It's why most people retire and then they're right back to work only a few months later because they got bored.
And I had to break it a few times before I figured it out. But for me, I love working with people. I love building things with people. So for me, I had to give myself permission and know that like as part of my identity is that is who I am. And that the more you're around people that are a mirror to you and tell you like, Jess, you're good at this, man. Like, you bring the energy. And then I had to realize that I had to cultivate that belief within myself, though, like that I believe that. And then what I realized is that I was really good at helping others believe in themselves, and that helped them help their clients believe that they could get them where they wanted to go. Like, how are we going to help clients believe that they could achieve something and we're the ones to get them there if we don't believe we can do it ourselves? And so for me, that's been the number one in leverage, is the multiplier of where your passion is. You get around the wrong people, they tell you what they see in you based on how they could make money on you doing that thing.
I've heard you refer to
Why do I
yourself
know that? Because I've done it.
Yeah, you've been there, done that. I was going to say, I've heard you refer to yourself as the Chief Encouragement Officer, the CEO, right? Chief Encouragement Officer. I think I heard that on your Reveal podcast.
Yeah.
How do you feel like podcasting helps to elevate your reach and create leverage in your brand?
Oh, I'll just tell you straight up. Number one is people will not say no to you, Mike. And my mentor told me that, James Rembert. And I think it was like right before, I'll tell you a quick story about the podcast, which by the way, I'm relaunching soon as under a new cover. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, you look out for the invite for sure. So my mentor, and this is really good advice that somebody could apply. He says, we were talking about what I really was passionate about doing year before last. It was like 2 weeks before the end of the year, like 10 days before the end of the year. A lot of people out on holiday, like years winding down, like getting ready for Christmas, all that kind of stuff, holidays. And I said, well, I think I want to do a podcast. And he's like, Jess, you think you want to do a podcast? And that's the thing, is like, with conviction, we need to be able to clearly articulate to ourselves what it is that we want to do. And that shit is hard. It is so hard, right? And so I said, I want to do a podcast. And he's like, all right, grab out your note paper. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? He's like, write out like the first 10 names that you want, people that you want to interview, and think big. And I'm like, okay, I'm like writing them out. And I noticed like the dialogue in my head, right? Which is like, oh, nah, it's probably too big. No, just write it down. And then go ask them all to be on your podcast, and then schedule them on the podcast, and then figure out how to record them on the podcast, and do that all before the end of the year. I was like, this year? So that's how you get things into motion, though. So I wrote them out. I text them all. I picked 2 dates. I gave them a time, and I interviewed Amy Somerville, first person I interviewed on my podcast. She was the CEO of Success Magazine at the time. And I was just talking to her on the phone the other day. It's like, thank you for, I mean, you know, when people, Mike, people won't say no to you. People love to be invited, especially people that love the reason, what your intention is, right?
Vision. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So be clear about your intention and be vulnerable with people, because when you're vulnerable and you're a good person and you have great intentions, especially people that have like made it through a lot of freaking hard time of not succeeding and failing, they will love you for that. And they will want to see you win, you know? So,
you know, that vulnerability piece is so true. I say something often that resonates with a lot of people. I say that your story is not for you. You know, that story, that lived experience that you've had, that challenge that you faced, whether it was that diagnosis that you were able to beat or maybe still living with, that failed relationship, that failed business, that business partner who stole 6 figures out of your account, like me, right? We all have stories that we lived through and came out victorious on the other side, but still have some of the battle wounds to show for it.
God,
you know, I went into a kind of a dark place mentally. You know, it was the first time that something like that, of that magnitude, had happened. And I really didn't know who to talk to or what to even say about it. There was some shame and guilt and embarrassment and the whole thing. But over time, as I started sharing the story more, I started getting stronger every time I told it. And what I started finding is that as I was sharing the story, it would break some things off of other people when I shared it. I would share the story and other people would hear it and go, oh my God, that happened to me. You know, nobody else knows. And, you know, part of my story was that I was at one point facing bankruptcy. And now kind of fast forward, I stand on stages and tell that story to hundreds, if not thousands of agents.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time I have a reception line of agents who come up to me afterwards and they're kind of looking side by side and they're kind of leaning in and going,
yeah, they're not ready to tell many. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, I'm there right now. Thank you for sharing that story. And so just the vulnerability has opened doors and created relationships that otherwise wouldn't have happened. And so I agree with you. It's hard to say no. People try to hide from being vulnerable and try to hide their story. But I think, depending on when you're ready, the more you build that story, the more you build that courage to tell that story, you start realizing that it's actually selfish to keep that story to yourself because you could be helping so many other people by sharing your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what I'd add to that is that there are some people that you could be around in the wrong rooms to be in to just share your story in the end, right? I think what's special is when you're around people that also encourage you to build something based on what you've learned, right? And we can kind of get into this, I think, this tunnel vision sometimes when we get so focused on we get overwhelmed by like so many different people's philosophies and information and ideas. And those are gifts, like, like all my mentors, right? Like, oh, you can't see the books, but right? It's like, you learn all these things. And then at some point though, you have to put it down and say like, okay, but what's my philosophy? There's 2, 3, 4, 5, like really strong ones that you've heard of on one singular thing. And at some point, like create something based on what you learned, like what you've done, Mike. Like you've created communities, platforms, trainings, business models, from what you've learned, what not to do. And then when you start creating, I think that's really where you get into the sweet spot of
Couldn't
joy.
agree more. What advice would you give to agents who feel stuck in busy work? They're trying to find their way through it, especially in a dynamic market like we're in right now. There are some agents who are freaking crushing it. I tell my agents all the time, like my partner agents, I'm like, man, whenever you start feeling like, oh, this market sucks and nobody's buying anything, no listings are selling and all this kind of stuff, I said, keep in mind that there's agents that are right there in your town who had 2 closings today or more today. Right. And they probably have more tomorrow or next week.
Yeah.
So why not you? Right. Look at how many closings happened over the last 30 days. Right. And then ask yourself how many of those were yours. There's not as many agents, as many closings as there are. Right. So if there's 1,000 closings that happened last month, that wasn't over 1,000 agents. That was probably like 50 agents, or 100 agents. So when I'm talking to agents and I'm trying to help them to understand that there's levels to this and it has a lot to do with their daily activity, that's where I'm asking you, what advice would you give to agents who feel stuck in their busy work? They're more
that's
busy
easy.
than productive.
I would say it's where everything begins, right? Is getting more time to do the thing. So first of all, you can't get there by just adding more hours. A lot of agents try to do that. Well, maybe if I start taking calls at 7, even though that's the only time that I get to see my boyfriend before the kid, goes to bed, or it's the only time that I can talk to my mom because she's in whatever. Like if I start giving up something that matters to me, and that's like, no. So it's like that stuff first, you first, your health first, right? So you don't scale by just adding hours, but by aligning with what multiplies. And so you need to figure out like what that thing is that like maybe you suck at it right now. I'm not saying like find the easiest thing. It might be the most uncomfortable thing, but find the thing that just like, you know what? I can get good at this through repetition of doing it. And I'm around the people, or I know of some people that'll help me do it. And I need to get this on my calendar. So the first step is you have to track whatever you're doing right now in order to figure out what you could get rid of, because you can't measure what you don't track. Like you don't have any math to math, right? No math and without math, right? So get the numbers down, and that could look as silly as, and I dare you to do this. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, you're trying that, like start doing it tomorrow, right now. You've got to write down what the heck you're doing, and you're going to be surprised. It's going to be, don't fake it. Like just follow yourself around and figure out what you're doing. And you'll find that you probably have a good 4 hours of doing something that you like do not need to be doing. ask yourself, like, is this aligned? So I keep a little piece of paper. I don't have it on me. It's in my bag in the other room, but a piece of paper with the 4 things that are most important for me to achieve in a certain period of time. You can pick your own. I'm sure there's other philosophies around this, but you've got to write down also your values. That's a yes or no. Like if you're learning, if you're not really aligned with your own values, that alignment exercise will get you more on track with your time as well. So write those down, write down what are the 4 things that I want to achieve, what's important to me. And I promise you, if someone asks you to do something or something's dangling in front of your face that you think looks like a great idea, you need to go through and say, like, does this directly align with the thing that I'm trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it's
And if
the
it's
decision
not
filter.
really or no or kinda, it's a no. It's a no. And if it's yes, then it's emphatically yes. But again, with conviction, you must be able to articulate to yourself what it is that you want and where you're trying to go. You can change it, but like you need to pick something and get into motion in that direction.
I've been guilty of that. I think maybe we all have,
So
but
have
I've been guilty. It comes from the belief of, as you start to grow in business, you start understanding, or even growing as an individual, you start understanding that you need to say yes to more things to grow your comfort zone. I never like to say get out of your comfort zone because nobody likes to be outside of their comfort zone, but we do want to expand our comfort zone. If I can help you to expand your comfort zone, you got more room to work with, right? And so in expanding our comfort zone, we do have to say yes to some things, and that creates a certain level of freedom, but we have to also understand that there's a lot of freedom in the word no too. Saying no to a lot of the same opportunities that you maybe have once would have said yes to. But in the expansion of this comfort zone, you start thinking more about and really getting aligned with what's important to you and does it align with your goals that you've set for yourself, that you yourself stated. And if the answer is no, then the answer is no.
But
if the answer is
no.
yes, then it's an easy yes too.
And one way to answer is, thank you for inviting me. Please continue to invite me. Unless you don't want them to invite you. Just don't say the end.
I like that. Yeah, because a lot of people just don't really know how to say no. So they just say yeah.
It's identity work, right? And like as we become better versions of ourselves, there are parts of our identity we have to let go. And mine was, you're always there. You always show up. You're always accessible. You're always available.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good for me.
Sometimes we have to say no to ourselves. We try to take on too many things, and it's just like, I can do that. I'll just wake up a little bit earlier. What's one more hour in my day? Oh, but that was the same time that you get your kids ready for school, or that would have been the same time that you're sitting down for dinner with the family before the kids go to bed or whatever else, right? Can you share a moment where letting go of control actually helped you grow?
My gosh. One.
Or a couple.
I think when you're hiring people, when you're building a team, for me, because I've had a lot of, just wanting to do things perfect, you have to just kind of be okay with what's going to happen if something gets broken. Not at the expense of like your client, or a financial thing, but just like if something doesn't come out perfect, I had to set myself up to be okay with that happening and not freaking out. And letting it happen. And what you learn is that people are a lot more capable of doing things than a perfectionist gives them credit for.
Yeah.
So that's one. Another one though was, oh my gosh, I think Mike, like getting out of your own way is not waiting till everything's perfect the way that you see fit and thinking that things need to be a certain way. Like, hey, I'll be good enough to be in this or be part of this or do that or get my videos out or start my YouTube channel once I lose weight or sell more real estate or have more trophies. Or like, one of my favorite things that inspires me is actually brand new realtors that follow their own journey of becoming a realtor. Have you watched any of those? They're addicting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did one probably.
Yes, I've done it.
I love those videos. And it's like, day one, they're doing exactly what every 10-year in the business realtor should start doing. So yeah, I think it's just get out of your own way. If you think you need to make it perfect, just find a way to rip off the Band-Aid and get into motion. And you're going to learn so much more by doing than talking or thinking about it.
Getting out of your own way is so important. And I think it's an important part of the conversation because especially when you're a solo agent, you're trying to do it all and you're telling yourself, well, I don't have the money to pay for this, but I got to do all of this myself. Which is one of the reasons why I created smarthireva.com, because I knew that like I'm a social media first kind of realtor, right? In some circles, I would be called an influencer, but it's a very small circle. So
in my circle, I mean, you are.
Yeah. It's a small circle, right? I don't have millions of followers.
But like you couldn't do this podcast. Like there's no way you could produce a podcast without help.
Without a team. There's no way. You know,
no way.
I teach social media classes to agents and I have them raise their hand. Raise your hand or self-identify if you have photos and videos inside of your phone that you shot with every intention to post at some point, but you never got around to it. And that was 2 years ago. That was 3 years ago. Right? Why? Well, because you started thinking about, well, I got to figure out the caption. And I really got to put it through that filter thing. And, you know, I've heard about CapCut, but I also heard about this other one. And then I know you can do it through AI. And you start coming up with all of the reasons that it has to be, as you mentioned, Jess, perfect. But there's too much for you to do throughout the course of the day. I release content every single day, usually in the form of video, because video first. And I have a top of mind strategy with my social media. So social media is very important to my business. It brings me leads. There's agents that reach out to me.
And your brand is like you. The brand, I love your social.
The whole thing. Thank you. But solo agents try to do so much of everything themselves. Many times it falls to the wayside. And the same could be true for busier, higher scaled agents. But this is one of the reasons why I believe it's so smart to hire a virtual assistant often and early, to be honest with you. But what is one of the first things that a solo agent should let go of? Well, we talked about delegation before. What would that thing be?
I saw an agent the other day on Workplace say, I'm not hiring a transaction coordinator because I want to learn how to do it. Does anyone know what forms to use?
I hear that one. I hear that one so often.
Like, do your client a favor and hire. First of all, go talk to your broker and stop asking people on a forum. Second, hire the transaction coordinator and stop lying. It's because you don't want to pay the money to them, and because you don't understand leverage. And 3, what are you going to do when you're done figuring out all the paperwork and the transaction's over? Now you're going to go find a new client. So I'm not saying don't write your contracts or your listing agreements. Like, can you just read the form and highlight the questions that you have and go take the class, put it on your calendar, and then hire a transaction coordinator that is part of your team and show your client that they're hiring a company and not just an idiot that won't spend the money on a great coordinator. I'm sorry, Mike.
It's true. It's true. Transaction coordinators. I remember the first time, that was probably it may have been in my first year of real estate. And I was at a conference and I remember somebody talking about transaction coordinator and they used the acronym TC. And I'm like, what? You know, I leaned over to the person next to me. What is a TC? You know? And so they went on to talk about the transaction coordinator and blah, blah, blah. And somebody said, yeah, but the person in that circle, they said, yeah, but you don't need a transaction coordinator until you're about like 40, 50 deals a year, you know? And I'm thinking 40, 50 deals a year, daggum, I'm just trying to get to my first 15 or 20. And dude, I look back now, I'm like, that is the worst advice that you can give.
Worst advice ever. But I would say though, the next thing is write on a list everything that you hate doing, not because, just be honest about it. Like, everything that you just really don't like doing that takes you out of that prospecting mode, everything that distracts you from prospecting mode, everything that is an excuse for why you can't be prospecting for more business, every one of those things, go and ask somebody that talks about leverage, listen to Mike's podcast, call Mike, reach out to Mike. He's got the answer, like at EXP. Find out who can help you automate or work with ChatGPT. Like my mentor says, you cannot break it. Just play with it. Figure it out, and write out a process, and SOP is the best way. That would be the next thing, is I would say, while you're not super busy and you're a new agent, it's the best time to write out the SOP. Again, why would I write an SOP? My whole business is going to change at some point. Hey, here's the good news. You can freaking change it. So just write it out now so that you have something in place so that you can train someone. And then when you hire someone like a VA, first thing you do is you hire people that know what they're doing rather than people that you have to train to do the thing. We hire people that we like instead of people that are actually qualified to do the things that we hire them to do. So that's a big thing that collapse time with that advice. Hire someone that already knows how to do the thing and then record them doing the thing. And you've already got your next person trained on how that task is going to be specifically done with your systems or your, preferences or whatever. But yeah, hire someone that already knows how to do the data management or the posting on your Instagram or whatever that thing is. Hire people that already know how to do it versus training someone on something that you're not really good at and don't like doing. That's good advice.
That's great advice. That's great.
Why is it always so simple? The best advice.
Because it's the simple things that scale, right?
Here you go again. That was a great liner. I love that, Mike.
Brent Gove said, simple scales, fancy fails.
Done. There you go.
Right?
Simple.
So we could keep going. I love having conversations with you. We always have fun. We need to go back to Vegas and even have more fun like we did before.
Yeah. The first time we mapped out our first ideas was at I think you forgot your wall. I was like, Mike, here's 20. Put it in the machine and let's talk.
It was at a slot machine in Vegas when we first sat down and had our first serious conversation. And we knew then it was like, you know what? It was like a 5-cent machine or whatever, nickel slots, but just so much fun. And you're always a wealth of inspiration and knowledge. I think our audience can feel that just coming from your words. You truly, you do what you say that you do, and you're happy to share it. And I think it's been an incredible conversation. So I thank you for being a part of it.
Thanks. Can't wait to listen to the next episodes.
Oh,
Take care,
yes. Mike. Listen, from masterminding Momentum Mondays to cultivating borderless real estate growth, relationship-first operations, and mindset-driven leverage, this episode has been packed with insights to level up your business. So thank you to Jessica Nieto for helping us to leverage and level up. And thank you for tuning in to the Leverage Lounge podcast. If there's anything that you found value in, if there's any questions that you have from today's conversation, whether it inspired new ways to mastermind or build borderless leverage or even lead with intention, there's one small request that I'd like you to make. Hit subscribe on your podcast app so that you never miss a future episode packed with tools, stories, and strategies to help you scale wiser. And while you're at it, feel free to leave us a quick review because it makes a huge difference and it helps more agents discover what we're building here on this podcast. If you're looking for new show notes, key takeaways, Jessica's information, our mastermind, her podcast, any other resources like smarthireva.com, you can go over to leveragewithmike.com and you'll find episodes and you can listen or watch there. Here's your cliffhanger for the next time we're together. We're bringing in another high leverage real estate innovator who's transforming how teams operate. And trust me, you will want to be here for that one. Until then, I'm Mike Collier, reminding you to lean into leverage. We're all about scaling smarter. So let's scale together. Thanks for being part of the lounge.